Hello and welcome to Tippcast with myself, Shane Stapleton, with Enda Treacy and Nina Guardian Sports Editor, Shane Brophy. How are you doing, lads?
Good, Shane.
That's good stuff. And we've plenty to talk about here, as we always do on Tippcast. Obviously, Liam Sheedy has departed as Tipperary manager in the past couple of days. Brendan Maher retired last week, of course. The Camogie, the last team standing for Tipperary, they're out this weekend against Waterford in the All-Ireland Camogie quarterfinals. Then there's the North Championship final to look forward to. Kiladangan will play Kilruane. And we'll have a little chat about the All-Ireland final between Limerick and Cork before we finish out. But Shane, just starting yourself on the Liam Sheedy departure, it's been a couple of days now. Probably not unbelievably unexpected, but certainly 2 All-Irelands over the course of 2-3 year tenures. So he leaves Tipperary in a very good place.
Oh, definitely. I was saying, like, in comparison to September, was it early October 2010 when that bombshell came that he was going the first time? Like, this definitely wasn't expected. In fairness, he didn't drag it out too long. What was it? 3 weeks after the Waterford game, or 2 weeks after the Waterford game. I know himself and the selectors, Owen, Dara, Eamon, and Tommy, I think they met last Saturday and they trashed it out. And I suppose it came down to, they knew themselves that staying on for 1 more year was probably, while it was doable for them, it probably wasn't going to do the squad any good. They probably needed a bit of long-term certainty. And I suppose, look, the energy levels that are required at this level, and like it's such a demanding role to be manager of Tipperary. And look, I suppose you'd like to think maybe if they hadn't won an All-Ireland and they were still trying to chase it, they probably would have had the hunger to do it. But considering they had their All-Ireland one, and there probably is a bit of a rebuild needed. And like it's like if you're not on top of your game, as Liam Sheedy said, if you're not at the pitch of things yourself, it's just not going to work out for you. And look, he was honest enough to say that just the energy levels are probably not where they were when he took the job on first and for the second time in 2018. So look, he owes Tipperary absolutely nothing. Like when you think he's been, 2002, he took on the Tipp intermediates. That's effectively, like, he's been involved in Tipperary hurling at some shape or form for probably 15 or the last 20 years between intermediates, minors and seniors. Like, and I'm sure he won't be lost to Tipperary GA going forward. He'll be in some capacity, maybe behind the scenes, maybe you don't know, in terms of maybe sponsorship or leadership or something like that. He'll definitely be used to Tipperary's advantage going forward.
Yeah, Enda, what do you think?
Yeah, it'll be a massive loss. Look, we were spoiled in the last 10, 12 years with the group of players we've had and Liam Sheedy. Like my earliest memories, I'm probably too young to fully appreciate and remember the 2001 All-Ireland. But a few years after that, maybe I started going to matches, and then we were, getting bet in qualifiers, getting bet in first round of Munsters, and we got to a few Munster finals maybe towards the mid-2000s, but we weren't really contending to win them. It was just, we were kind of making up the numbers. But like the transformation in the space of a year after getting bet to Wexford in the quarter final 2007 to 2008 when he came in, he's the perfect manager for the group of players that were coming in out of the minor group. And, he's just put in so much work, and he's been a great ambassador as well to Tipperary hurling over the years. And, probably the greatest regret we'll ever have is that he packed it in after 2010 All-Ireland. Maybe there was a couple more All-Irelands shortly after that. We wouldn't have to wait 6 years maybe if he had stayed on. But look, that's only speculation, but he's been fantastic to come back and do what he did in the first year as well. It just seems to be something he's cracked at this stage, coming into a group that's kind of broken, especially after 2018. We were kind of down in the dumps after losing out in the Munster round robin when it was introduced. So, he's going to be a massive loss. People were eager to maybe get going with the younger lads and get a new management team set in, but I'm sad to see him go up, because you know what he's given to the county and what he could still give if he stayed on. But obviously, maybe he's looking to do something different himself. Obviously, Shane was saying he's there for the last 20 years odd in some capacity, so maybe he's earned a bit of time for himself now again.
Yeah, without doubt. And I think that was one of the things that he said in his message when he was announced that he was stepping away. And of course, that's absolutely deserved and brought a lot of great days to Tipperary. I mean, 2008 came back in, won that Munster title, you know, and you talked about those days when Tip were almost in the doldrums during the mid-noughties, and 2009, that league final, even the performance in the All-Ireland final, of course, winning Munster again that year. The 2010 All-Ireland final is probably one of the greatest days that most Tipperary supporters who are alive will ever have. And then, of course, 2019 was brilliant. Obviously, the Munster Championship didn't go the way Tipperary fans wanted, but to win the All-Ireland final, especially, you know, the Wexford performance, and then, you know, tearing Kilkenny apart in the All-Ireland final, you know, that's sort of, not only is it good, it's fairly sweet too into the mix as well. But I suppose the last couple of seasons hasn't gone right, you know, and probably even in some ways, you know, there was a sort of a last hurrah effort in that first half against Limerick, and it slipped away. And then, you know, it sort of slipped away against Waterford also, the way that they pulled away just towards the very, very end of the game. It does feel like it was sort of a natural parting of ways in some respects, Shane, and we kind of did talk about that. But who next? Because Liam Cahill is the one that is been mentioned everywhere, really. Willie Maher has been... he was about to be announced as Tipperary manager before Liam Sheedy came in at the 11th hour the last time. Darragh Egan's name is in there. Maybe Brendan Cummins will be mentioned. Maybe Tommy Dunn. There's probably a few more in there as well. So not a massive shortage of candidates. Even Darren Gleeson, of course, as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Sure. Look, you'd have to think it's Liam Cahill's if he wants it, really. And like everything suggests that if he's offered it, he'll take it. I still even remember that the press conference after the Waterford game, and I just look at his face, like, and while he was thrilled to have won with what, I just think it killed him. It killed him to be on the opposition bench that saw a Tipperary team beaten, and I'm just not sure whether he'd be willing to go through that again next year if he stayed on with Waterford. And that's nothing against Waterford. I know people would argue, sure, why would he leave Tip when he has a project going in Waterford? And like, if you were to take that purely on that basis, you think he should stay where he is. But look, he's as died as the one Tip man you get. This opportunity, if it's offered to him, like he can't go into the county board and say, I'm your man. I suppose they've got to do their due diligence too. I know there'll be some people out there saying like they shouldn't be looking at anyone else, but look, they sort of have to do things right. Like, I know
if he's not brought in for a meeting about it, it'd be a disgrace, really.
Oh, absolutely.
You know,
I know there's just people saying that there should be only one meeting the Tip County Board have, and that's with Cahill. Well, I think that's bullshit. Like, if you're doing things right, you talk to as many people as you can. It doesn't mean they're going to get the job, but you never know what sort of an idea you might pick up of another candidate maybe going forward, or like as I suggested on Twitter during the week, like we've an under-20 vacancy there. Like, I think that's as big a role to fill as not too far off the senior job in terms of importance. And like, could there be a tie-in between the seniors and under-20s going forward? And I'm not saying a management, maybe a selector, or definitely, I think whoever's the strength and conditioning coach for the seniors has got to be the S&C guy for the under-20s for the next 3 or 4 years. Like, you're going to have continuity there, like a person that knows his job, like so, and or her job. It's like it's not always a S&C person, it's not always a male, but like I think in terms of like, I think there'd be a massive disappointment in the county if Liam Cahill is not the next manager. That's the vibe I get, and I'm not putting down any other potential candidate, but I think they'll be very much looked at as second choice among the supporters then, and then you're trying to get them on side as well. So, and there'll be a lot of pressure on them to step in. I've heard Declan Fanning's name mentioned in some capacity again to come back. So whether that's a part of maybe Liam Cahill's backroom team or somebody else. So well, I think this will be wrapped up pretty quickly. I wouldn't be surprised in the next 2 or 3 weeks where we get an announcement.
Yeah, and get your comments in there on Facebook and YouTube. We can bring them up on screen and discuss your comments. Who would you like in as next Tipperary boss? What was your favourite day under Liam Sheedy? Even any comments on, Brendan Maher or any of the North final, etc. But Enda, what are your thoughts in terms of next man in? Do you think it's Cahill or nobody?
Well, look, Cahill is the obvious candidate. Like, I mean, if Cahill is available and he wants to do it, it's fairly simple. I know Shane's talking about due diligence and stuff, but our lads, if the other lads going in for the interview with the county board know Cahill's going for their, like, is it going to go any other way? Based on what he's done with the underage teams and the relationship he has with the players, and all he really needed to do was cut his teeth at inter-county level with a senior county, and he done that with Waterford. He done very well. He done better than anyone would have expected. I think that's fair to say when he took over. I think there was a few people maybe you're thinking, like, what was he doing going in here? If it went wrong for him, maybe it would have put him in the back seat, or it would have put him back and getting the Tipp job in the future. But in fairness to him, he's confident in his ability, and it worked out for him. So look, if Cahill is available and Mikey Beavens is available, look, get them in as soon as you can. Let them start building for next year.
Yeah, well, as a Toomey Vara man yourself, you obviously know well how good Mikey Beavens is. Too many people outside of Tipp are referring to him as Bevins. I'm trying to put a few of them straight on that one. Yeah. But can you just talk about the importance of him? Because we know that having the right type of coach is just huge at this level. Sure, all we hear about is Paul Kennerk with Limerick.
Yeah, well, Mikey, he lives and breathes the hurling, and with the underage teams and Tipp, that Toomey Vara team of the noughties, the late 90s and the early noughties, a lot of lads get the plaudits like John O'Brien, Tommy Dunn, all the Dunns, but Mikey was the heartbeat of that team with his work rate, and if only he was about 3 or 4 inches taller, he'd have been an inter-county hurler himself at senior level. But he's just brought the way he played the game. It reflects in the teams that he's coaching, just hard running, going into the tackle with bravery, and I think that style of play has come into every county now, bar Tipp. And if we're looking to go head to head with these other counties, with the way Waterford hurl, Limerick, Cork now, it's really tailor made, and look, he knows those young lads as well as Liam Cahill does, and he'll get a good tune out of them, and he'll. It's a no-brainer. It's a match made in heaven as far as I'm concerned, with the players that are there and the management team that are there to come in. So yeah, it's exciting enough.
Yeah, and I mean, in terms of knowing every player that's coming through or that we feel should have been brought through a little bit quicker, Liam Cahill does know absolutely every one of them. He knows what makes them tick. There's lads that aren't on the panel that he probably would draft straight in. He might change around the panel a nice bit too. He came in and, I mean, we're talking as if he's going to get the job. But look, he came in and swung the axe in Waterford pretty quickly. So I don't think he'd be too concerned about doing it in Tipperary either. He's never been shy about having it his way.
No, definitely not. Like when he was minor and under 20 manager, like you went to a school's match or a college's match of a midweek Wednesday, he was there. Like, and you can be sure if he did get the job, he would be nearly going to every match, even down to junior level, he could over the next couple of weeks if he thought there was a player worth watching. Like, so he will scour the county. And like, you look at, it was sort of I don't know what you think about it, Shane, but like this year, it was a nice sort of throwback, like seeing the likes of Paddy Fitzpatrick at 30, like coming in and for Clare and making an impact. Pádraig O'Hora, like 27 years of age, based off club form, coming back in and managed a match against Dublin. You like to think that just because maybe you haven't hurled senior for a while, but if you were hurling well for your club, maybe 25, 26, 27 years of age, you'll still be brought back in and you'll still have a big contribution to make, like, because like it shouldn't be all down to the young lads that won under 20 and under 21 All-Irelands. And look, we saw what happened with Limerick between 2000 and 2002, 3 in a row, never raised the gallop at senior level. That brilliant Clare team that won 3 under-21s in a row, and he won 1 All-Ireland out of it. So, which was wasn't an awful lot for what they gave at underage levels. So look, underage success means absolutely nothing. Like, and provided the players are good enough to build on it, like it's only a stepping stone at the end of the day. It's only potential, really. Like, so it's look, I suppose you'd be surprised if he's not given the role. Like, and like I suppose the county board would be under pressure if they didn't give it to him. Like, I'm sure there'll be terms and conditions of certain things that Liam would want. And you would think that, like, Liam's backroom team is very, very, he says it himself, it's almost a family. I don't think he'd be a man for having 15 or 20 or 25 people in the backroom team. I think he's very, very small in-house. He'd keep it nice and tight, and it could actually end up saving the county board money too. But I'm sure there'll be maybe certain elements too that Liam might want in terms of, I wouldn't say demands, but things that he feels are important that way.
Yeah, well, you went over a broad range of topics there, Shane, but like, I definitely think like any manager would be looking to scour a county for a Paddy Fitzpatrick or some player who can operate at that level, or is it somebody who maybe was a very good underage player a couple of years ago and kind of slipped through the net somewhat? You know, there's got to be players all over Tipperary. Sure, hurling mad county, and everyone's pucking a ball up against the wall somewhere. There's bound to be a few lads that slip through the net. But then also it's a different style of hurling. And that's probably one of the things that marks Liam Cahill out for this job. And of course, Darren Gleeson has been over Antrim for the last couple of years, and they've made strides too. So that's credit in the bank for him. But like, to take a team that was, you know, and there are excuses, suspensions, injuries, the ghost goal that Jason Ford got against Waterford, all these reasons. But Waterford were a losing team for 2 years, playing hurling a certain way, probably trying to change it. But Liam Cahill came in, and the change was just so, it seemed quite instantaneous. You know, there's obviously a few teething issues in different games, perhaps the league game against Thurles, or in Thurles against Tipperary being one example. Ozzie Gleeson got sent off the same day. But like, to have that dramatic a turnaround and to have those players playing the new modern style and get to a Munster final and push Limerick as close to anyone and get all the way to an All-Ireland final and, you know, get a breakthrough win over Kilkenny, all that kind of stuff. All these optics just kind of scream, this is the right man for the job. And that Tipperary can maybe play a more modern style of hurling. Like we saw, you talked about before there, Shane, that Kilkenny, they had even moved into the more modern running the ball type style of hurling. And they reverted to the old style in latter stages against Cork and got blown out for it when they did. Like Tipperary, with the hurlers that Tipperary have. Now, some of those players like Jamie Byrne and Austin Gleeson and Prunty and a couple more, they are class players for Waterford. But Tipperary are never short class players. And if Tip are playing the cutting edge style of hurling, and I see no reason that Tipperary couldn't challenge for an All-Ireland next year. Now, maybe that's just me with the blue and gold glasses, but I really just, if to keep the panel together, you know, play with pace and energy, which is in the county somewhere, just get out in the field. I can't see Tip being too far off.
Yeah, and I don't see Cahill buying into this project type job. He'll want to come in and make an impact straight away. You can see with the young player, it's a young man's game now. You can see him with Mayo at the weekend there. The young players coming off the bench won them the game. Like, so there's a few of those young lads that he's had on his underage teams that are on the panel 2 or 3 years now. So they're ready to go at it, and he'll be looking to win All-Ireland if he comes in straight away. There'll be no 2-3 year project thing where we're all give us time. This that you'd hear from some managers. He'll want to go in and he'll want to make an impact straight away.
Shane, during the noughties, even when Tipperary weren't challenging for an Ireland and gone backwards, with the right manager playing the right system, like, I would say just generally Tipperary should every single year be challenging for an All-Ireland, even then when Tip looked so far away. And it was shown then when Sheedy took over, they went from being a team going nowhere to overnight, you know, pushing really hard and getting to an All-Ireland semi-final. So that to me just shows right man in charge, and Tipperary you're always going to push.
Oh, definitely. And like I say, Liam Sheedy was the right man at the right time in 2008. Like, and I don't know if you read the Irish Examiner this morning. P.M. O'Sullivan did a piece with John Costigan just talking about Liam Sheedy's impact. And I think John Costigan was the county chairman at the time when Liam was appointed, and he more or less, when he met in John's house one night, it was more or less, I'm the right man for the job. He more or less put himself out there. And there's a bit of, this is where maybe a touch of arrogance sort of has to come into the person who wants the job, because look, it's been thrown at Tipperary that we're an arrogant fan base. Sure, maybe we should use it to an advantage sometime, and maybe whoever wants the job will come into the county board and meet whoever the delegation is and say, look, this is my plan. I want this job. And look, I think that's going to be a lot of what's going to come across here. Like, who's the hungrier candidate? Like, we, as you say earlier, like, there's a lot of candidates. We don't want to say like it's a fait accompli that Liam Cahill gets the job. But like, he is the raging hot favourite. Do you think, like Dara Egan has been mentioned strongly? I would be surprised that if Dara would want that job now. Like, he's only 35 years of age. He may have got a taste for it over the last 3 years as a selector and coach, and maybe he'll feel that he has a plan to maybe take Tipperary to the next level. He's one. I think Tommy Dunn. I think Tommy much prefers the coaching side of things. I'm not sure whether him being up front and dealing with the media and doing all that sort of stuff would be down his avenue. Willie Maher, I know Willie's been linked to the Wexford job, so I'm not sure how close that is to being resolved at this stage. And I have great time for Willie Maher. I just think there's a lot of people in Tip, like you think his under 20 team beat a lot of that Limerick senior team at under 20 level in 2016 in a semi-final in Munster, but like they lost the Munster final to a star-studded Waterford team in Walsh Park. And okay, he might have made a couple of tactical mistakes that day, but sure, who doesn't make tactical mistakes? You have to learn somewhere. But I would have thought maybe I think Willie probably be next in line if Liam doesn't take it. But in terms of long term, if the Wexford job is there and he's offered it, I think it would be an ideal thing for Willie in terms of maybe following Liam's example, going to get an inter-county post with and then testing his teeth down there for a while. So like that, I think it'd be interesting to see what happens there. Like I think Brendan Cummins, I wouldn't be surprised if he's involved in some capacity. Maybe he might feel maybe after being involved with Laois and Kerry behind the scenes, and now is the time to get involved. Whether maybe senior is probably a bit too soon, under 20 role maybe coming in there, because as I said, that's a vital role to fill as well going forward. So there's some I mentioned Declan Fanning. I think Darren Gleeson, not sure he's done enough yet. But like you'd have to say, he probably be cut from the same class as Liam Sheedy, pure passion and pure drive. And look, Antrim for like they're a passionate hurling county, but and in fairness to them, they got them played a lovely brand of hurling up there, really, really good. And I probably didn't have enough quality hurlers to take it on to the next level. So but they're not going to be short of candidates. And as I would love to see the county board offer to meet as many people as possible. Okay, they might have their number one pick, but look, it's no harm maybe in terms of maybe even for future management roles going forward to sound at who potentially might be good for it and who might not be.
Yeah, I had Willie Maher for a couple of years with Coola, and now I was away for a lot of it because of family reasons. But you know, he's very good, very organised. And then when we got, like Brian Horgan was the coach for the first year, and David Herty for the second. And during part of the second, there wasn't a coach there, but when David Herty came in, it just kind of clicked. So just pairing together with the right coach, and then that could be a very attractive package, whether it's Tipperary or Wexford. Talking with Willie. Just a comment in here from Dennis Ryan saying the 2016 minors, 2018 under 21s, 2019 under 20s. Of course, we have the hurlers. We must believe, otherwise we just leave to Cork and Limerick. We'll talk about Cork and Limerick in the All-Ireland final a little bit later on. So Brendan Maher also retired from Tipperary action there at the tail end of last week. And I know him well enough from Borrisley, of course, but a big loss overall, because he's a huge imprint on Tipperary for the last 12 or 13 years at this stage, and probably goes down as one of Tip's most decorated hurlers.
Yeah, definitely. It's changing at the guard, definitely. And I remember seeing Brendan. Was he 16 or 17? They played Roscrea in a North final in Nina, and
15.
I think that was 15. That was the first day I seen him, and look, even knew then that he was going to be top class. But what he's gone on to achieve has been pure class, and not just his hurling. Like, he's been a fantastic hurler, obviously. But I was talking about good ambassadors, but you're not going to get better than Brendan since he's been in there. Just we hear the cliche a lot with lads that finish up and he's a nice guy and everything, but Brendan is the epitome of a nice guy. He's one of life's good guys, and he gave everything for Tip, and he never batted an eyelid getting thrown in centre forward, midfield, wing back, full back, man marking job. He was kind of a jack of all trades, and he was quality at all of them. So he's going to be a massive loss there, and especially I forgot to mention as well when he came back from that cruciate in 18, he was actually as fit as I'd ever seen him in the Tip jersey. It just goes to show the mental fortitude he had to come back from it stronger than ever. But he's going to be a massive loss. These lads aren't easily replaced, and he's been fantastic for Tip, and hopefully we see him playing for Burrs for another few years, because he's a good player to watch.
Yeah, and I was probably, funnily enough, we're talking about in a Tipperary context, but it's actually perhaps the Borrisley run to the All-Ireland final is what he's Isn't it funny? Normally it's what they do in the county stage, but that might end up being the thing that Brendan ends up most remembered for Shane, even though he's an All-Ireland winning captain with Tipp.
Oh, definitely. Like that's 6 months of hurling he put in 29. That was special. Like, and like what the Munster final against Ballygunner, the semi-final against St. Thomas's, and scoring that point would have a hurry. Like, there was just rewards for the work he put in after coming back from that cruciate injury. Like, and like it was like you were speaking to him last week. Like, you think the sessions he put in, like before work with Caroline, and then after work, like he could have been doing 9 or 10 sessions a week, including by the time he got back on the field to get himself right. And you could see it in his play, like that first match back against Cork and Páirc Keeve, and geez, remember that brilliant catch, and he came out the field and he stuck it over the bar, and he said, "No, this guy is back." And like, I think through all, I was going through it there yesterday. Every match in that campaign, I think bar the Laois game, he marked the opposition's most key forward. He went from Austin Gleeson, Taran Gillan to Tony Kelly, Rory O'Connor, and then TJ Reid in the final. Like, he must have played in, I think he must have played in every position that year between 2 and 7, because depending on, because wherever his man went, he went. Like, and he was just immense. Like, and like I actually found an interesting. I was going back through that 2005 North final. I was actually the first time I actually seen him too, which was against Nina, and I came across the reaction piece after from Gerald O'Neill, who was the coach, and they were talking about Brendan got 4 points that day. I think 3 from play as a 15 turns. I think he was just gone 16. And he more or less, in quotes, like, this lad's going to have to be minded, because this guy has all the attributes to be a star. Like, and he lived up to that. You know, the way you hear about all these brilliant 14 or 15-year-olds, this lad is the next big thing, and sometimes they just don't live up to it. Like, he, along with Owen Kelly and the likes of him and Tommy Walsh, and I don't know the guys that you know at underage, that there's something there. Like, and he definitely lived up to it.
Yeah, I was on the panel that day, actually. Gerald O'Neill, I always remember his sort of speech as every whole man. He was always kind of, every whole man, I want you to get stuck in here. Yeah, I know Brendan was brilliant that day and many more days since. We'll move on to the Camogie. Of course, Tipperary are out this weekend against Waterford. Páirc Keeve 6:45 on Saturday, I think. So third year in a row they've met in the quarterfinals. Enda, what have you made of the Tipperary Camogie team of what you've seen this year?
Yeah, steady progress been made again. They're kind of building on the last few years. Look, there's still a young panel there, and he's been building the panel up a bit more this year. I think he took last year to heart at the end of the year when there was 3 or 4 players missing for a semi-final against Galway, and there was players coming off the bench that really didn't have the game time in the legs and didn't have the experience. And I think he's definitely learned from that throughout the league campaign, the championship this year. He's blooded a lot of players, and you know, they've lost Sarah Friday after the league campaign. She's gone to live in Dubai. But they seem to have settled on a team again fairly quickly with Grace O'Brien midfield. So I think there's a good balance in the team now. Look, we've another game against Waterford. They're very familiar with them over the last few years. Now I think this is the third out of the last 4 years they've met them in the quarter final. And they played them in the league early in the year, and they put up a big score on them, but you know, it's hard to read too much into it. I think Waterford are missing a few players that day. But look, continuing the progress that they're on, they should be winning the game. Maybe the goal scoring attributes have to increase. I think if they could get 2 or 3 goals and win the game fairly comfortably, like, you don't want to be blowing them out of the water either. It doesn't really set you up too well. But I don't think Waterford will allow for that. But a couple of goals, I think they need to start scoring goals to be beating the Kilkennys, Galways and Corks. They can just hit you for 2 or 3 goals very quickly, and Tip need to be able to develop that into their game. I think that's all they're missing, to be honest. They have a good set back line there, and in Van, and they have a few speedy forwards as well. Claudia McIntyre's after coming into it in the last couple of years. So, look, they have the tools to do it. I think they just need to be raising a few more green flags in the big matches.
Yeah, Shane, maybe stop Niamh Rocket is one of the things. And then, of course, you know, Tip are coming in good form after topping the group.
They are, yeah. Like, I saw most of the match against Wexford last time out, and I just thought it was probably a statement of how the maturity of maybe that maturity that Tip had developed. It was like Wexford have fallen back for the last few years, but they're building again, and they sort of played a very, very defensive setup that day. And like Tipp found it very, very hard to break it down. And like Waterford or Wexford started playing on the counter attack, and like there were in other games, Tipp would have maybe just lost their cool, maybe lost their composure, and Wexford would have sensed that. But no, but just Tipp kept plugging away. The scores weren't coming very freely, but they just kept any chances that came, they took them over. And then when Wexford were sort of forced to go chasing the game with 10 or 15 minutes to go, Tipp just took full advantage. They got 2-3 goals. I think they got 2 goals in the last 5 or 6 minutes to put the game to bed. So, like, it just shows like they have the scoring ability when they want to. I think, as Enda said, I think Tipper have a way deeper panel than they had this time last year when they just about scraped over Waterford in the quarter final down in Páirc Uí Chaoimh. So, you'd like to think that if that carries through, and like Waterford have had a difficult enough campaign, like they struggle past down. They beat Dublin fairly comfortably in their other game. I think they lost heavily to Cork as well. So like they've only won 2 games out of 3. Like, and I think Down are in relegation as well. I think Down and Dublin might be in relegation. It's Down in Westmeath, but I think it's a big game. I think it's a game we can win. I think it's a game we can win comfortably, and hopefully taking in a bit of positivity into the semi-final the following weekend, which is what they're hopefully gearing up for. Like, and that's not taking Waterford lightly or anything like that. Tipp want to get to a semi-final, and they want to get to a final this year. Like, they've had 3 semi-final losses in a row. Let's say they're not reliant on Kiladangan anymore for scores, which is great. Like, there's Clodagh McIntyre, Emer McGrath, you have Nicole Walsh, like they're all chipping in. Like, relocating Grace O'Brien to middle of the field is after giving him a lot of legs out there as well. Like, so in fairness, like they've restructured. They're not afraid to try girls in different positions. And they mentioned Sarah Friday, like they had sort of her settled into sort of wing back midfield, and she unfortunately made a decision that she was going to head away to the Middle East to work for a while. And but look, Grace O'Brien's gone in there. The team doesn't really have missed the beat so far. So definitely think Orla Dwyer is a massive advantage. I saw her in the Limerick match, and I think it was the goal she set up at the very end, Enda Premir. Like, she was quick before she went to Australia. She has found another level of quickness altogether. She's gliding over the ground now, and if she gets space in these matches, she's going to she's going to go either going to score herself, or she's going to draw defenders, and somebody else is going to benefit off them. So I think she could be the key player in Tipperary, maybe finally making that breakthrough this year.
Yeah, because are you looking for a marker to be laid down here, Enda? Because as Shane has said, making that breakthrough against one of the big 3, it just hasn't quite happened yet. Yeah,
they definitely need to be improving on the games against these types of teams. Like Waterford aren't going to be a walkover, but if your aspirations of getting to an All-Ireland final, you have to be beating them fairly comfortably. They've had a 3-week break now since the Wexford match, so maybe they might be a bit slow to get going at the beginning of the match, but you'd imagine the scores they have around the field, the pace that they have, Orla Dwyer and Clodagh McIntyre. Like, in their back 6, they have a very solid 6 backs, so you'd imagine that it won't be from conceding that they'll lose the game. So if they get any way up to gear in the forward line, they should be winning the game. And just if they get into a semi-final, maybe they could get a team that have a 4-week break after playing their last game, and that could work to their advantage as well. So it seems to be aligning a little bit, I think, maybe. And I think the breakthrough has to come this year. I think, look, you can stay going to the well every year, but eventually your confidence is going to take a hit, and you have to take the opportunities when you're on a high. And I think this year they might nick into a final. They have to get over to Waterford first, obviously, but I think this is the year for it.
Yeah, well, fingers crossed. We definitely hope that is the case. This Sunday at 6:15 in Nina, Kilruane and Kiladangan are going to face off in the North final. Just over this past week, Kiladangan, they saw off Nina in a high-quality game, and Kilruane beat a fairly disappointing Borris in the other semi-final. Shane, you looking forward to this North final?
You definitely would. Like, there's no doubt about it. Look, it's a local derby. It's the 3rd North final in 5 finals between the two of them. It's 1 win apiece. So I think there'll be a bit of bragging rights at stake in this one for whoever wins it. Like you mentioned, like, there's no doubt about it that the Kiladangan Nina semi-final was the better game on Sunday in terms of standard. Like, it was really, really top quality game. Kiladangan's just that winning mentality got them over the line. The last 5 or 10 minutes when the match was there to be won, they knew how to do it. They really squeezed Nina's forwards out of the game in that 10 minutes. And then at the other end, look, they got the breaks. Like Mark Hughes, who was brilliant in the match, the Nina goal, he pulled off 3 or 4 brilliant saves. Like if people remember John Sheedy in '84, there was a ball coming in and he was just he knew the ball was going over the bar. He tried to bring it down to stop the ball going over. And of course, it just broke to Maher and he had to scoop it to the net. And that was it. Like, even though Kiladangan added a point after that, probably very questionable whether it was inside the post or not. But look, I think the goal was the winning of the game. So and then you have Kilruane, who, geez, it was interesting. I thought they were maybe one of the more vulnerable teams coming into the championship, maybe playing in the Orion teams. But look, they're in the final now. Beat Ballina to a difficult enough game. Comfortable against Portroe. Comfortable for a finish against Barbersley. Probably should have won it 12-13 points in that game, the amount of wides they hit. But like, I'm not taking anything away from Kilruane's performance, but Barbersley were very flat on the night. Like, no, they didn't look, lack of energy in the team. I know they were missing a couple of guys, but look, it was actually the strongest 15 they'd put out in their 3 games. You had Brendan starting, you had Dan McCormack back starting again. Kevin Maher was back after missing the Tipperary match. So like, they were still pretty strong, but they looked like a team that had nothing in their legs. But look, it's Kilruane took full advantage of it. I suppose, look, Kiladangan are going to be favourites, but Kiladangan were favourites in 2018 when Kilruane beat them, was it 19-12, I think, in the final. I think for Kilruane to win this time, like, they have to sort out the free take. And like, I think against Portroe, they had 4 different free takers, or sorry, 3. They had Paddy Williams, Willie Cleary, and Cian O'Kelly. And then Cian Darcy was back last Sunday and he was taking frees. He scored a few, but he missed a few. Like, you can't go into a final and not have a 90% free taker. They've got to find a way of sorting that out for a weekend.
Yeah, and we'll actually come back to Burris and Nina in a couple of minutes, seeing as both of those teams will be back out in action in the county championship. But Kiladangan and Kilruane, then just even looking over who did the scoring against Burris-Lee for Kilruane. Cian Darcy hit 1 for, Niall O'Mara scored 4, Willie Cleary got 3, 2 of those from free. Seamus Hennessy got a goal. Jerome Cahill on the score sheet, and actually plenty of others. A lot of different players getting on the score sheet. Are you more impressed by what you're seeing with Kilruane, or Kiladangan are obviously coming in as county champions, so maybe that know-how is going to stand to them.
Yeah, I think maybe Kilruane are looking at this North Championship and attacking it, because they're in an extremely tough group. It's like a mini North Championship in the county group as well. And it's a big opportunity to get into a quarter final. You know what you're getting with Kiladangan. Like, the day they played us, they absolutely blitzed us, minus 3 county players. They're set in their system and they have the hurlers to back it up. And their goal threat is what sets them apart from most teams. Like, if Sean Hayes and Joe Gallagher, Dan O'Mara, Billy Seymour, these lads, when they get anywhere inside the 21, it's head down. And the last option is taking a point. And that's how they beat you. Kilruane, after the Ballina game, I was kind of looking at it and going, all due respect to Ballina, but I thought that Kilruane were probably going to be struggling this year. With missing a load of lads that are, Ray Mallochny is gone and Seamus Hennessy wasn't starting, so I was expecting them maybe a bit of a dip from them, but I think they're really targeting the North Championship, because they're in, as I said, they're in an extremely tough group with Ross Gray, Nina, and is it Bursley again?
Yeah.
So it's not opportunity there. I don't know. Kiladangan will want to win everything they can. You know, they're not going to be one of these clubs that are thinking past winning a North final like they hadn't won them for a long time. And while the iron is hot, they'll want to get every piece of silverware they can. So I'd still fancy Kiladangan to win it. But as Shane was saying, we were expecting that the same the last time they played in the final, and Kilruane came out winners.
Yeah, Shane, like Kilruane, we keep talking about this every year. They have all the talent, and they're kind of setting themselves up at nearly men. You know, nearly never pulled the cow. They're going to have to do it at some stage. Can this be a breakthrough year from them? Like, did you see enough in the Burris match to think that there's something different about them this year?
Look, Kilruane will always be competitive. I just wonder, have they lost too many maybe players, the likes of Ray Mallochny, the likes of what's not Jerome? What's the other brother's name?
Justin
Cahill. Like he's not hurling at senior level anymore. Like they're really. I'm not sure whether their bench is not as strong as it used to be. But look, I think I've been impressed with the way they sort of rearranged their team to try and get the best out of them. Like having Seamus Hennessy at full forward as some physical presence up there, great leader. He's like he will give it everything. I thought moving Willie Cleary from wing back to wing forward, I thought that was a strange move, but now I've seen him twice up there. You can see what they're doing. He's as honest as the day is long. He's very good at winning the hard ball, and look, he's been able to pick off a couple of lovely scores from play. But he's very unselfish too. He will, if he's not in the position to score, he will work a guy off the shoulder. I think Sean McAdams coming back this year from Australia has been a big help. Like he's so much energy dropping deep out of centre forward. Like he will give David Sweeney problems, because he'll try and drag Sweeney now out of centre back. Or definitely Joe Gallagher and Ty Gallagher. Sorry, Willie Connors and Ty Gallagher will have their hands full, like they're keeping an eye on him as well. So and then Kilruane they've sort of built a very, like when you have a half back line of Kieran Cahill, Niall Maher and Craig Morgan, that's a good platform to build from. Like Craig was brilliant against Portruhe. Really, he's just. I can't see how he's not going to be on the Tipperary starting team next year under new manager. He just seems to. He makes hurling look effortless when he's on the ball. He's so much potential. Like so, look, I think Kilruane to win this are going to have to keep this tight as long as possible. As Enda said, Kiladangan went for goals early on against Nina. They got 2 in the first quarter. They could have had another 2 more. So like if there's half a sniff of a goal, Kilruane will go for it. But I think this is going to be tight. I don't think Kilruane can allow this to get turned into a shootout, because I just don't think they'll be able to keep up with Kiladangan if it does happen.
Yeah, and just a mention of Cian Darcy, and we've already talked about the goal threat of Kiladangan, but scored 1-4 against Bursley. Does a lot hinge on his performance in this match?
I don't think so. Like he did miss the Portruhe match. So like he having been previously part of the Tipp panel, like he'll always be one to look at. But so will Jerome Cahill. Like I suppose he got 60 minutes in his legs now after a hamstring twinge against Ballina. So look, he should hopefully be a bit sharper this weekend too. And just going back to the Tipp, it'd be interesting to see whether, like, if Liam Cahill is not maybe able to coax Jerome back to play inter-county hurling. I don't think anybody will, because like there's no doubt he was on the verge of probably breaking into that Tipperary team when he decided probably at the middle of last year that he wanted to step aside for his own personal reasons. That's up to him, but that's not to say he can't be coaxed back by the right voice. So there's no doubt Kiladangan they seem to be going with the same group as last year. Declan McGrath was suspended for Nina, so you think he'll be back this weekend. And if he starts maybe in place of Darren Moore, and you're probably looking at the same starting 15 that played in the county final last year. But like I said, they have a panel there, like Tom O'Mara has come on there, Jack Lucknan, there are loads of guys on their senior B team. Like if other clubs who are pulling out a junior B if they have to fill vacancies, they're pulling out of a senior B team. Like, so them guys are not going to be far off it when they're needed.
Yeah, and so your prediction then, Enda?
Yeah, I'd say Kiladangan should win by 4 or 5 points. I think their goal threat's too much. Kilruane, I'd say it will go into a shootout, and I think Kilruane won't be able to keep up with them.
Yeah, Shane?
Yeah, I'm going to go for Kiladangan. But if Kilruane can play this match like they did in 2018, I wouldn't rule it out either. I suppose the interesting thing for me would be whoever wins, how do you keep the celebrations in check, especially with like COVID is beginning to be a problem now. The Bursacane Moneygall Intermediate final has been postponed because of it this weekend, and Kiladangan are out the following Friday in the county championship against Lockmore, first game up. As the county board, a brilliant one to put up first up. I don't think Kiladangan will have one eye, and that was like Lockmore in the same boat in the mid-final on Sunday, so neither of them will be looking ahead. But like, there's no doubt about it. It's if a club goes celebrating this weekend, they're possibly creating a scenario where they might have to give a walkover in the group stage of the county, because I think the county board have been adamant that just the time is not there to allow for postponement, especially in the group stage. Maybe in the knockouts you might have a little leeway on a football weekend, but I think in the group stage it's going to be if you have a COVID case or two lens in your team, you either play on without them or you concede a walkover.
Just like Tyrone did, I suppose.
Yeah.
Shane,
I don't think.
Yeah, I was going to make a point to you there, Shane. Obviously, there's a long way to go in the season in many senses. Like Nina have always been thereabouts the last few years. Bursley will be back in action against Roscrea in a couple of weeks' time. I wouldn't see it being the end of the season for either of those just because they're out of the north. And, you know, I mean, for Bursley, disappointing performance. But, you know, I mean, they've obviously been county champions a couple of years ago and won't be that far away.
No, definitely not. I think there was always an element, even I would have seen all three of Bursley's games so far, that they definitely had one eye on further down the road. And that's not on devaluing the North Championship, but against Laura, they held Brendan Maher back. Then against Templederry, Ray McCormack and Kieran Maher got knocks in the first half. They were immediately whipped off at half time, no risking. Kevin Maher got injured against Laura, didn't play him against Templederry. Then they actually had their strongest 15 out against Kilruane, but like any bit of an injury, there were guys were whipped off. Your own brother Paddy didn't even get a run, like as if they weren't prepared to take too many risks. Because I think Borsalino, look, they won their couple of Norths recently. They're dealing with county championships, and it's about peaking in late October, early November. And like Borsalino have to try and get through the group stage first, like, and after losing to Kilruane, and there's already Nina and Roscrea, like that's going to be a dog-eat-dog group. So look, I think Burris get their best 15 on the field, I think they'll be very hard to beat. Nina, while they were disappointed to lose, I was very impressed by a lot of what they did, their style of hurling. They've reshaped the team, like Conor Ryan gone to centre back, Adam Healy to wing back. Anthony Walsh was their big find at full forward. Like he's in his mid-20s. Like he's no raw young talent, but he just offers something that Nina, something else that Nina didn't have, a big physical presence and a guy that can score, and he's unselfish too. Like, so he'll definitely be. I think while they were disappointed, I think Nina will be thinking, okay, we went toe-to-toe with the county champions. If we meet them down the line, we'd like to think we can knock them over. I know I haven't seen much of the other divisions, but Thurles Sarsfield seemed to be bubbling along nicely after last year, and still no Billy McCarthy back. You'd think he'd probably be back soon. So I think this is shaping up to be another cracking county championship.
And did you think
more there as well?
Yeah, well, there are all those teams. Do you think can Nina ever make that breakthrough? It's only been the 26 years at this stage.
They're well capable of, in terms of talent, they're more than capable of making that breakthrough. They just seem to come unstuck on the big day. Look, they know better than anyone that they've had many opportunities, and even when they seem to get over the line, they're kind of the Mayo of Tipp Club hurling, where they can beat the likes of Thurles. Yeah, they can beat the Thurleses and all these big teams. And when it comes to final, you know, the game against Clowney a few years ago, I thought their name was on the Danbreen Cup for that year, and they came unstuck. So look, Nina will always have the ability to be able to win a county championship, but it's easier said than done. The matches aren't won on paper. So look, they've plenty of young talent, and they still have a bit of experience in the team. So they're always going to hurl well. It's when it comes to knockout hurling where they come unstuck.
Yeah, absolutely. Is there any further points you want to make on that, Shane, before we move on?
Not particularly. I suppose we'll probably have a decent look at the county championship next week when the first round fixtures are out. Like, so as I said, Kiladangan and Lockmore is the first up on the Friday night. So I think we'll have a surprise or two maybe in the group stage. There might be one or two big names might make it out of their respective groups. Like definitely looking at Mike Harkey's performances in the mid, I don't think it's a foregone conclusion that Kiladangan and Lockmore will just walk out of that group. I think Mike Harkey have done enough to suggest that maybe that they could have something to say. But I definitely think the group stages will be exciting as they were last year.
Yeah, keep the comments coming in. Dennis Ryan says Mayo for Sam and Nina for Dan. Porter says, so it's a given that Cahill will be back. It's not a given. There's no done deal. Nothing's agreed until everything's agreed, as they say in politics. We'll move on to a little quick preview of the All-Ireland final this weekend. Cork are up against Limerick, so as I'm sure everyone and their dogs saw a couple of weeks ago, Cork saw off Kilkenny after extra time, and Limerick won by 11 points against Waterford. Shane, which way are you leading in this? Gut instinct?
I'll have to start thinking about it. I'm not the most motivated for this All-Ireland final. I don't know what I'm sure Limerick and Cork is different. usually build up to an All-Ireland final, you be getting excited. I don't know, it's a strange one.
Well, you hate Limerick and Cork, I suppose.
I
You
know,
don't so much.
yeah, hate's a bit strong, like, but
You want to see them both lose?
no. Actually, look, you have to. Like, Limerick have done everything right this year. You've been feeling all along that they've been sort of building to gradually get better in each passing game, and like the Waterford match, they definitely picked things up an awful lot. And I think there's another one to come. I don't like, even though they bet Cork by 8 points in the Munster semi-final, I thought Limerick were pretty average that day. And I know Kieran Kingston has come out today saying that his side didn't get enough credit, but they still lost by 8 points. So I don't know what credit they're looking for. They still lost the game. Like, so I still think Limerick will be too strong. I think, strangely enough, Cork probably have the better subs bench. So if it is relatively tight, 10-15 minutes to go, I give Cork every chance. But I just think Limerick have too much know-how, too much experience of the big day, and they'll get the job done.
I think this is going to be war. And I was at Dublin Mayo the other night, and the atmosphere was incredible. Like, the atmosphere was pretty good for Cork, Kilkenny and Limerick, Waterford. I think this one is going to be fairly class. And I don't know, I'm starting to lean more towards Cork as the week goes on. I am a bit concerned about Jerry Millerick and seeing if he's available or not. But what way are you leaning?
I think it's a bit wishful thinking now, leaning towards Cork.
I'll back it up in a minute. But go on.
Like, they haven't been in All-Ireland since 2013, so they'll be up for it, and the crowd will be up for it. There'll be a serious atmosphere at it. Look, they played Limerick early in the year when Limerick weren't motoring at all. I think the turning point for Limerick was that second half against Tipp. I think they just got to kick up the arse that they needed from Tipp in that first half to get into gear, and they just blew Waterford away after the first 15 minutes when Waterford came at them in the semi. Cork will need to score. I'd say they might need to score 3 or 4 goals to win the match. And I think that's something Kieran Kingston zeroed in on this year. You can see from the league performances, Jack O'Connor and all these lads, they're going for goals. And they had the chances in the Munster game, but they didn't take them. But I just see Limerick just have too much power, too much with that half back line, Kyle Hayes and Dermot Burns. I'd love to see Cork win it because I'm a massive fan of Pat Horgan. I think I'd love to see him win an All-Ireland medal, but I think Limerick are just going to have too much for them.
Yeah, the first thing to say is I'd like Cork to win this, but as soon as Cork win an All-Ireland, I'm going to be sick of them instantly. That's just always the way it is. But I would say, like you mentioned that Munster semi-final loss, and you were saying, what credit did Cork want? They lost the game by 8 points. But I thought there was signs that day that even though their puck out went against them, and even though Patrick Horgan had his worst ever game for Cork, Robbie O'Flynn did, and Harndy went off after about 45 minutes, they missed a heap of frees. They were still in the conversation most of the way through the game. I think they had it back to 4 points late on, and they kept missing scores. And they've improved every game since. Like the Clare game, fair enough, Tony Kelly could have scored a winner. But sometimes a great save, as we saw with Nicky Quaid, that can be the thing that kind of the spark that ignites it. Now, if I was to ask you, hurler for hurler, who's more skillful, Cork or Limerick? I would say Limerick are better athletes and have the better repped game plan. But I'd say Cork actually have better hurlers. Now, the Jerry Millerick one is interesting because if you look back at the Munster semi-final, Owen Cadigan started the game and he played on Tom Morrissey and he completely shut him down. So they might go with that. But they might go... part of me thinks maybe Damien Cahalane should come back in full back. He came in midfield against Kilkenny, but maybe he'd be good there because he's very good at taking possession and running out with it. I'm not saying he's the silkiest hurler going, but like he's very comfortable taking the ball and running out of defence. And I think you need to be able to do that. Then the problem is man marking Cian Lynch. Because Jerry Millerick did it the first day a lot of the time. And then, we passed him off to Mark Coleman at other times. But I think just Patrick Horgan can't play as he can't be as quiet as he was in the Munster semi-final. I think Shane Kingston now, after getting the rocket of being dropped last day and scoring 7 points, he'll come in and play angry. Dara Fitzgibbon is going to do a little bit of damage. I think it'll be a puck of a ball, to be honest. And Cian Lynch, if he goes to town, that's obviously going to be a game changer. But like, in that first half, we saw what happens to Limerick when you put them under pressure. Their hurling does break down a little bit. I don't think Cork's hurling ever breaks down. I don't think Tipp's hurling ever breaks down. But I think Limerick's hurling broke down. So that's why I'm starting to lean towards Cork. But look, if Limerick won by 3 or 4, that could well happen, obviously.
Yeah, and I think there is something in, like, you'd always know with Limerick, like the thing of they never fear Tip. They actually don't. Even when Limerick are very poor, they'd always fancy their chances against Tip. But I just think there's something in the Cork psyche that always makes Limerick wary. Like just every time Limerick seem to be doing something, a Cork team always seem to come in and whip the rug from under them. So like that could have. I think there's something in that. I'd be interested to see if Kingston starts, who drops out. Because would be Conor Cahalan probably would be.
I'd
the
say
obvious
Shane
one.
Barrett. Conor Cahalan's
maybe.
been playing midfield though,
Yeah.
because they swapped him and Dara Fitzgibbon. They just wear the opposite numbers.
Maybe they might look if they have to go somebody and Lynch might have to be Billy Hennessy. Like you can't see Millerick playing like he pulled up sharp. That's an Owen O'Donnell job. There's no way he's going to be right. Like so.
He said himself now since that he hopes to play some part, but he can't be right, especially to man mark someone like Cian Lynch.
Like you can't. Do you sacrifice Mark Coleman and put another person in and that holding role? I don't think so. I think I don't think they'll move Downey out of full back. I just think like they've been looking so long for somebody at 3, and like I've been hearing a few people over the years say Downey's the man, but nobody's willing to play him there. He's got 2 or 3 games in there and he's done nothing wrong. Like so, I'd leave him there. I wouldn't be surprised if Cadogan plays wing back. Just maybe they'll go power for power. Cadogan and Cahalan as their 2 wing backs go physical with Morrissey and go physical with Hegarty as well. So, and let's say try and keep the game alive as deep into as they can. Like as you said, the Munster semi-final, they can't afford to be missing frees. They can't afford to be missing easy opportunities. I just thought in that Munster semi-final, while they did a lot of hurling, I don't think they ever truly believed they were going to win that match. Like, will they have that turned around in the space of a few weeks? I just thought some of those missed chances were from a lack of belief that they were actually good enough to beat this Limerick team. You like maybe that the springboard of the few wins or the last few weeks could be what could be the difference in terms of maybe closing that gap. Now, whether they can close an 8-point gap in what 5 or 6 weeks, I'm not so sure.
So prediction time then, Enda.
Yeah, I'd see Limerick winning by 3 or 4 points. If Limerick get up any sort of lead at any stage during the game, I can't see Cork having the belief or the confidence to pull them back. They'll need, as I said, 3 or 4 goals, Cork, if they're going to win it, and I just don't see those coming against the Limerick backs.
Shane?
I think Limerick 3 or 4, and I know some of those Cork short puck outs went close to the wind against Kilkenny. I just think Limerick are going to pilfer one of them and turn it into a goal, and that could be the difference.
Yeah, I'm going to go Cork by 2. So I'll put my neck on the block anyway. Right,
wear a Cork jersey on the show next week.
And then throw it in the bin after. Okay, well, look, thanks very much. As ever, that's Tippcast for today with Shane Brophy and Enda Treacy. We'll be back again next week.